The How to Train Your Dragon movie franchise just can't seem to go wrong. It's so rare that a second and third movie are just as beloved as the original. And yet, fans and critics alike just can't stop raving about all three. And when any movie is as beloved as these are, you just know that fans everywhere are coming up with some amazing theories to try and explain every last detail. Armorwing and Boneknapper. Because of their similarities, these two dragons have people wondering, are they actually related? And the evidence seems to say yes. First off, they just look really similar. Fans believe that this is at least one indicator that these two dragons share a common ancestor. Or else, why would they look related? Second, they behave in a pretty similar fashion. They both scavenge, one for bone and one for metal, in order to build themselves armor to protect their bodies. Sure, the Boneknapper has the creepy and slightly cannibalistic habit of collecting other dragons' bones for its armor-making needs, while the Armorwing collects discarded metal like it's on an episode of Storage Wars. But still, the similarity is undeniable. They also both belong to a class of dragon known as the Mystery class, which, as you can imagine, is named that because of how little is known about them. So, for all we know, they could totally share a family tree. DRAGO'S CLOAK. A self-proclaimed dragon god, Drago is a pretty scary figure who is bent on dominating the world with his army of humans and dragons. The first time he encounters Hiccup, he tells him that when he was a child, his village was attacked and destroyed by dragons, and his family was killed. But rather than being afraid of the creatures, he became determined to conquer them, and by controlling them, keep the world safe from dragons. And then he totally went off the rails and became a crazy dragon-abusing warlord. We know that his cloak is made of dragon skin, which is how he is protected from the fire that they breathe. But some have wondered, could his cloak actually be made of Night Fury hide? Could it be that Drago himself is actually responsible for how few Night Fury dragons there are out there, in that he hunted them to near extinction? It definitely wouldn't be out of character. When Eret sees Toothless, he seems to get excited at the sight of such a rare dragon, saying he thought they were all gone for good. Maybe because he thought his buddy Drago had done away with their entire species. Toothless can fly. We know that Toothless can't fly without Hiccup, but some fans have actually challenged that whole idea. You see, in the short film Gift of the Night Fury, we see Hiccup make Toothless a prosthetic tailpiece that allows him to fly on his own. But at the end of the movie, Toothless intentionally smashes it, so that he and Hiccup have to stay partners. Later, in How to Train Your Dragon 2, it's established that Toothless still needs Hiccup to properly fly, but that they have altered his tail so that it locks in place and he can glide for short distances on his own. And yet, in the climax, we see Toothless flying straight up without Hiccup. Some fans believe that Toothless actually can fly on his own, but the bond he shares with Hiccup is so much more important to him that he chooses not to. Rather than being ridden by Hiccup, the two ride together, and that makes them both stronger, and that, because of their bond, Toothless's ability to fly actually increases the longer they spend together. Toothless the Alpha. In How to Train Your Dragon 2, we see Toothless challenge and defeat the Bewilderbeast, aka the Alpha Dragon, in order to protect Hiccup, making Toothless the Alpha in its place. But what if Toothless was actually already an Alpha Dragon? Some fans think this might be the case, and they make some seriously compelling arguments. Let's start back at the first movie. In it, Hiccup and Toothless fight and defeat the Red Death, which is also known as the Queen of Dragons. This huge dragon is extremely powerful. She sits on her nest and is tended to by all of the dragons, who she can summon with a cry. Remember, the Bewilderbeast has a similar ability to control the minds of dragons with a scream of its own. We know that there are more than one species of Alpha Dragon out there, and some think that this Red Death was actually a female Alpha Dragon, maybe even of the same species as the Bewilderbeast. So the theory goes that when they took down the Red Death, Toothless became an Alpha Dragon in the first movie, and in the second, when he challenges the Bewilderbeast, it's actually one alpha challenging another for dominance. Instead of little Toothless taking on a far superior dragon, it was a fight between two evenly matched alpha dragons. HICCUP'S COMA. A battle against a dragon called Red Death sure doesn't sound easy, and it definitely wasn't for Hiccup, who was so injured he fell into a coma for a day afterwards. But some fans believe that he was actually unconscious for a bit longer than that, though no one is exactly sure how long. First of all, Hiccup is up and walking pretty quickly after waking up, which doesn't actually make a lot of sense. In fact, he would need more than 1 day to heal from an injury that serious, indicating that it's been way longer than 24 hours. Second, when he wakes up, Hiccup has pretty much no burns on his body. And yes, while he was saved by Toothless before the fire got to him, the heat would still have been seriously intense for a sensitive human skin to withstand without getting burned at all. So maybe he did have more time to heal. And finally, the relationship between Burke and the dragons was definitely not something that could totally transform overnight. It had to have taken a bit longer than that for sure. Hiccup's dream. The same fans that believe that Hiccup was in a coma for a lot longer than 1 day have come up with a very intriguing theory. They believe that every episode of the TV show Dragons Riders of Berk were actually dreams that Hiccup had while he was unconscious. Riders of Berk aired in between the first and second How to Train Your Dragon movies that followed more adventures of Hiccup and Toothless. But the thing is, nothing that happened in the series is ever mentioned in the second or the third movies. And a ton of stuff happened. There were plot lines, new relationships, changing dynamics, and a ton of adventures, all of which seem to not exist in the later movies, which is why some fans are totally convinced that none of these episodes ever actually happened, but all of them took place inside Hiccup's mind. They also think it's possible that he dreamt that he lost his leg, possibly because of the real-life pain he experienced while unconscious. After all, when he wakes up without a leg, his reaction is pretty chill. Basically the opposite of what might happen if it was a total shock to discover your leg completely gone. The Rider's Plan. It seems easy to write off Rough Nut, Tough Nut, Fish Legs, and Snotlout as not the brightest bulbs in the box. But some fans have a theory that they might actually have more going on upstairs than meets the eye. In How to Train Your Dragon 2, they along with Astrid and Aerith are captured and taken to Drago. This pretty much means that this might be the end for them all, knowing that he's never going to set them free. It seems accidental, the way they mention Hiccup and pique Drago's attention. But what if it wasn't such an accident? See, the theory goes that they all know about Drago from the story that Stoic told about when he killed all the chieftains after they laughed at him. They know that Drago is fueled by a desire to prove himself, and that he will try and conquer Hiccup in order to defend his reputation. So, by mentioning Hiccup and setting Drago on a path to try and kill him, they have actually stopped him from just killing them there and then. He needs to defeat Hiccup in front of them, alive. But of course, they have faith that Hiccup and Toothless will take him down. So actually, they are leading Drago to his own destruction. Not so extinct after all. It is well established in all three movies that the Night Fury is a very rare breed of dragon, and that it is believed that they are almost extinct. But one fan theory actually challenges that whole idea, and believes that there might be a whole lot more Night Furies out there, all over the world. The idea is that Night Furies are actually not native to Berk, or any of the other areas around it, and because of this, there aren't many of them seen by the people who live there. The Vikings have mapped the areas they know, called the Barbaric Archipelago and Dragon's Edge, but not more than that. Because they have only seen very few Night Furies, they assume that there are only a few of them left. But actually, this theory proposes that there are Night Furies all over the world, and Toothless is simply the odd one out, who made his way all the way back to Berk. Night Furies not only can fly the fastest, but also the longest distances of all the dragons. So, it's entirely possible that Toothless actually comes from a place that is rich in Night Furies, but wound up across the world from the rest of his kind. Does Toothless know? For a long time, we assumed that Toothless knew that it was actually Hiccup who shot him down and damaged his tail so that he could no longer fly. But some fans have a theory that actually, Toothless has no idea that Hiccup is responsible for his injury. It really changes some things about the movie, but might actually make sense. The first time they meet, Toothless is aggressive and fearsome towards Hiccup. Some might think that this is because he knows exactly what Hiccup did, but in reality, it might just be because he is a human, and that has been the relationship between humans and dragons. It isn't until Hiccup proves that he is trying to help Toothless that he comes around and starts to trust him. In the second movie, Hiccup tells his mother that he is the one who is responsible for Toothless's injury, and Toothless is right there for the conversation. Now, while we know he can understand a lot of what Hiccup says, we don't actually know how much. So it could be possible that Toothless doesn't actually hear what Hiccup says. Maybe he really doesn't know after all, and that's why he trusts Hiccup so much. Hiccup's leg. Some fans actually think that Toothless ate Hiccup's leg. Opposing the theory that we mentioned before, these fans think that Toothless did eventually figure out that it was Hiccup who shot him down, but had accepted that they were friends by then. Yet he couldn't help but even the playing field. And so, when Hiccup was unconscious after his fall, Toothless took the opportunity to have a little snack. He didn't intend to kill his friend and knew that he would recover, but for them to be truly equal, Toothless needed a little bit of an eye for an eye. If those theories don't make you think a little differently about the movie, then we don't know what will! What did you think of this list? Do you have any other awesome fan theories that we should know about? Let us know down below, and we hope you had a ton of fun watching.